Yep. This is the Planning and Architectural Review Board Workshop. Today is Tuesday, May 5th, 2026 at 4:30. Let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Can we have a roll call? Paul McKitka.
Here.
Barbara Revels. Scott Chapis.
Here.
Susie Johnston. Here. Lisa Smith.
Here.
Rick Belhumer. Under general business, we have competing and/or gray ordinances. Lupita?
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Over.
Pull your mic up so you can. It's important.
Can you hear me now? Okay, great. So over the last 18 months, working with the staff, we've discovered perhaps some gray or competing ordinances. And so we're going to talk about the retail 2025-12, but Drew had an opportunity to talk with the code enforcement guys on how better to enforce that. They thought that it was a little gray on enforcement. So we're going to delete 2025-12, which is the retail receptacles for garbage from that. What I had intended to do was to have the receptacles be branded with Mr. Reynolds, who comes up with Keep America Beautiful, with the branding committee who's working on unifying the city's look, and with the city. So I don't think we probably need to entertain that, since Drew was able to explain to the code enforcement officers how better to be able to enforce that. Do you want to add anything to that? Okay. And then the other list that you have, beginning with 2008-08, is just short-term rental FYI, how it operates. 2005-02 is the combined use ordinance, which was later then changed to the mixed use. 2015-05 is also for FYI, and that is the A1A design boundary, which was extended to 11th Street and to 13th Street on Ocean Shore. 2023-08, that's the 25-foot setback on A1A if it ever comes back. The MPD was 2024-06. That was a difference in open space requirements for planned unit developments versus other subdivisions. And then the distillery, which allowed that distillery. Okay, so beginning in 2025-01 and including 2025-08, 2025-09, 2025-10, and 11, that's the meat and potatoes of your land development code. That's aligning the building code with the land development code with the engineering code. And so we did that in cooperation with the Florida Division of Emergency Management, and they provided technical assistance to smaller towns. That's where the land development code kind of got delayed because that technical section, when Larry was working on it, that's what was missing, was that technical section. So that was put in there for FYI, which of those sections were updated for that. We did go back and do +3 for the base flood elevation, and that was in 2025-09. And then the statutory plat, which is now administrative, but when that happens, you're getting a report that it's happening, so at least you're aware of it. But it's now administrative. And then 2026-03 is the minimum with lot width, which also has to, talked about with due today, that that requirement for 3,000 square feet for a townhome needs to be reduced in order to match this, so, because we don't have 6,000 minimum square feet.
Got a question.
So that's one thing that has to just be updated in the codification. Yes, Mr. Belhumeur?
Am I missing some paperwork, or are we just going through this legislative stuff? I don't have anything specifically to,
Well,
it says, workshop. This is just a workshop. So I didn't pick up everything I should have picked up then, I guess. Okay.
okay, so
Follow as best I can.
what I'm reviewing is this. And that's what's included, and your email has a little cheat sheet of what those ordinances are. And that's, so that we have a understanding of where we are with the land development code, what's been updated, and the fact that Senate Bill 180 doesn't, as well as other legislation, doesn't allow for design guidelines, and we do have design guidelines in place that are unique to the city. So, does anybody have any questions on the review of ordinances and land development codes that have been adopted in the last 18 months? Yes, ma'am. Yes, that's next on the list. Let me see. So that's B. So, we're on A, competing and gray ordinances. So if we don't have any questions on the ones that I covered, I'd like to be able to now, on those competing ordinances, to specifically talk about 2022-09, which allows medium density residential in tourist commercial and in GC.
I have one question.
Okay, sure.
Drew, could you give us the receptacle, quick answer?
So what I explained, within that ordinance was adopted to do exactly what it did. And I think code enforcement's concerns was they were looking for, well, how big does the receptacle have to be, and those type of technical things. That is exactly why Mr. Reynolds brought that ordinance forward, was to get away from, and it's a model ordinance that's going around the state, to get away from the, well, if you have a receptacle that's this big, you've checked the box and you're good with code enforcement. It was a way of dealing with the situation where even though your receptacle is this big, either because you're not emptying it frequently enough or it's getting a lot of use, it's not doing the job it needs to do because garbage is flowing out of it. And so what that ordinance is doing is it's creating a presumption that if code enforcement keeps seeing an overflowing receptacle on your property, then you're going to get a notice from code enforcement saying you either need to empty more frequently or you need a bigger receptacle, because if we still keep seeing overflowing garbage, you're going to get a notice of violation. That's what that ordinance
But I
is
was
doing.
reading it, there was no indication of inside, outside, 6 feet from the door.
It's only outside. Yeah, it's all exterior. Because
All
that's
exterior,
correct.
okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
So, in talking about amending 2022-09, I know we can't make a decision here, but we can decide whether or not it gets placed on the agenda. It would be to consider, and I'll tell you why. Most of the time-consuming that's happening is the rub between single-family and general commercial and tourist commercial. So mixed use is allowed along in the downtown area. You can have mixed use, and then along Ocean Shore. So if the board would consider removing from permitted uses in MDR to single-family, two-family, multifamily. Thank you. Then that would certainly take away the competing zoning and certainly streamline what's permitted, and then what happens once a single-family home is in general commercial and or tourist commercial. Right now, those that are being built are mostly going to be short-term rentals that happen. So it's just piles and piles. So if one say something.
Just on that point, to make sure it's the context on short-term rentals, even though it's common for all of us to think of short-term rentals as a business operation. From a zoning standpoint, they are residential properties. Because what makes a short-term rental isn't how you build it, what you build, it is the use. It's a residential use that is being used temporarily as opposed to long-term, but it's still a residential use. A short-term rental single-family residence tomorrow could become a single-family residence again. So I just wanted to get ahead of that one before there was confusion between commercial and residential. When we're talking short-term residential of single-family property, it is still a single-family property. So it's not a commercial property from a zoning standpoint.
Commercial water rates in the GC when they build a home like that, or are they paying?
Thank you very much. No, no, ma'am, they're not paying commercial taxes. Sometimes it's homesteaded, and they're not built to commercial standards.
When we had one in Plaza Caribe, they charged us separately for commercial garbage rates because we were a short-term rental.
Well, that, I would have to look that up, but as far as looking at the property appraiser and
Code requires a BTR. Yeah, the zoning, it would be residential. The code requires a BTR. And so any rate that is based on if you have a BTR, that could trigger that. So if it's any property owner that has a BTR on the property pays a business tax receipt. Thank you. Sorry. Yeah, so that could be what would trigger something like that, is if you have your rate structure triggered on whether or not you have a business tax receipt or
But
not.
you're required in the city, if you have an Airbnb, to have a business tax receipt.
Correct, that's my point, yes. That's why I wanted to get ahead of that distinction, because there is a business element to it, but from a zoning standpoint, it is still a single-family residential use.
Yeah, I think Barbara too, because it was the hotel before. It's always ever been one water meter.
Right, right.
Yeah,
Um,
it's always a commercial.
And Michelle just confirmed that, yes, LBTR, you pay utility, commercial.
Yeah, you pay commercial sanitation rates, but all the other rates are residential.
Rick?
Yeah, as an example, I have a home-based business. It's homesteaded, but I have it LBTR and, have to pay commercial, rates. And that's
So home occup-
100%,
yep.
residential.
Yeah, and home occupations are a permitted use, so it doesn't affect zoning. So either more questions or some direction would be helpful.
Sorry, just on the direction, as I explained earlier, because remember with short-term rental regulation, we are grandfathered into 2012. So any change we make, it's not to whether or not you allow short-term rentals in tourist commercial and business residential. It's about whether you allow single-family development. And so if you were to say, if the city were ultimately to say, we're not going to allow any new single-family to be built in general commercial and or general commercial, that would mean you might not be able to build a new vacation rental, but it would not have any impact. Everything that's there would still be regulated by the ordinance. The short-term rental ordinance would not change. What you're changing is the zoning district and what it allows to be built. And so you could create a situation where you don't allow more short-term rentals to be built. That's not a function because the short-term rental regulation changed. That's because the principal structure regulation changed. Really, you're not allowed to build a single family in commercial. That would be the effect of that.
What's the difference in the definition of resort dwelling and the single-family home that's allowed in MDR?
I do have definitions.
Between resort dwelling, if resort dwelling is not, this is where the confusion comes in. When that resort dwelling definition, forget about the structure. It's really
Okay.
talking about the use. If you are renting on that frequency, that's what's triggering the resort dwelling. It's almost irrelevant what the building or structure looks like. If
Okay.
it's single family, it's resort dwelling. If it's multifamily, it's resort condo.
Okay.
And who monitors how often you're renting it? To determine whether it's,
To a certain extent, it's honor system. What code enforcement is looking for is evidence of rentals. But ultimately, those are challenging cases to present to the magistrate because the burden lies on the city to prove that somebody is doing something the code does not allow. And with rentals, while we can introduce into evidence advertising, which is our number one cue for code enforcement department that's tracking it, that's the first thing they see or get in the complaint is, look, here's the advertising for it. while we can introduce that in the code enforcement proceedings, it is still hearsay. Hearsay is admissible, but they can't rely on it. So we have to have non-hearsay evidence to back it up. And the best evidence that we can get in short-term rentals is the neighbors, when the neighbors are willing to testify. That's infrequent here and everywhere else. They often do not want to testify. And then the fallback from there is what I tell code enforcement departments, again, here and everywhere else I do this, is then you start looking for patterns. You watch the cars that are in the driveway. If you've got cars from Georgia this week, next week you got cars from Tennessee, and you build a record of that, plus our hearsay evidence of the advertising, plus any evidence or writings we get from neighbors, we're building a circumstantial case to try to ultimately meet our burden of proof. Is how we end up prosecuting those.
Can I ask a question? How many has the city processed that were illegal rentals?
Recently, I don't know. I know how many cases we go to hearing because I don't know how many get resolved before they cross my desk, so I can't answer the question fully. You might be able to, but recently I have not seen a case prosecuted before the magistrate. In the 24, 25 years since that ordinance has been adopted, I've probably seen maybe 4 or 5 cases go to the magistrate.
Okay.
Others, I know there have been some that have resolved without the magistrate, but
Just in my industry, in real estate, Flagler Beach has a reputation of you can just do what you want and no one enforces anything, and they come back and they say the city has to have all this circumstantial evidence and no one has to change it back from being a vacation rental. And it's getting sold that way throughout our entire real estate industry, unfortunately.
and I think there are lots of jurisdictions that have the same thing said about them because it is so difficult to prosecute the cases.
Okay.
If you have somebody that is paying their taxes, and this to your question too, that is doing the right thing at the state level, that's actually easier to track because if they're paying their taxes, there's a record at the state that they're paying their taxes. So the ones that are really skirting the radar aren't just skirting local code, they're skirting state code too because they're not paying the taxes that are due for those properties. Because if they're paying if they're registered with the state and they're paying those taxes, that actually is a record we can introduce in code enforcement too. But often in the cases when I work with departments that are trying to track down the cases, the first thing they do, they'll see if we've got a state license for the rental, and nope, no license for the rental. And so I can tell you in those cases, they're also cheating the state.
Okay.
So, in the case where, talking a single-family neighborhood, somebody buys a property, and I'm speaking of when I sold my home a few years ago, I knew the couple, what they were talking about. I was listening to them talk to their realtor about what they were planning to do with that structure. They were planning to turn it into an Airbnb because I had a separate wing that could be an apartment. And we sold, closed, they did. The neighbors went nuts because people were renting, were wandering around the neighborhood saying, we love this, we're here visiting, renting. And so neighbors complained to the city. City, I believe, sent the new owner a notice. I don't know if it was a code enforcement notice or a letter.
A friendly letter.
A friendly letter, okay. Does that happen most of the time when somebody complains?
I think pretty regularly here. I know I hear from John occasionally, and that might be one of the ones. I know in the past 12 months there's been one where they sent a friendly letter and there was compliance that was achieved at the friendly letter.
Yeah,
So yes,
I think
yes.
they quit, yeah.
Yeah, because lots of times it is simply I didn't realize the code said that. And when you get that person and they get the friendly letter, yeah, here and elsewhere I've had good results there, but it depends on the demeanor and the attitude of the person who gets that letter.
Right.
And we do have a pending one that's getting a letter that somebody called in and they have to agree to testify, agree, to monitor, to take pictures, et cetera, et cetera. So first we're sending a letter. And I guess I need to look at what that might look like so it can go out this week for one that we have right now that's an illegal short-term rental.
So you want to stop the building of residential homes in the tourist commercial
And general commercial. Mm-hmm.
and general
Yes.
commercial?
So it would be not allowing what's permitted in MDR if that's what the legislators and the appointed officials want. But it would be nice if it would be really helpful and help the general commercial and tourist district if we did not allow single family townhome duplex in there, which is 1, 2, and 3 of the permitted uses in MDR, and deleting in the tourist commercial and general commercial, line 13 in tourist commercial. I'm not sure what it is in general.
Are you gonna do, if you move forward with this plan, are you going to notify all the property owners that they're now losing some value they believe they have? They're downzoning their property in a way. If they really wanted to build a residence, and you're telling them they can't.
Well, the way I interpret the comprehensive plan is that in the mixed-use residential area that has a defined boundary, that's where you can have a residential component in general commercial and tourist commercial. So if it's a mixed use and they have retail in the bottom and they want to do a short-term upstairs, that's permitted. But a single-family home in general commercial and tourist commercial is where it's competing, and the outcome and the results are very time-consuming because there's not really much we can do.
So if I say, because I know one was just built up by the winery, I'm going to build this house and it's going to be a full-time Airbnb, it's a business, but it's built as a single-family residence. Do they get a permit?
Well, now they do.
Well, currently, without changing the
Yes.
ordinance.
A couple comments on this question. One, neither here nor there to the question you're really asking, but statute-wise, what state law requires, in that case where we're changing the list of permitted uses, it is heightened notice, but it's not necessarily letter notice. So it would still be newspaper notice. It's the display ad. It's the big font display ad is what state law requires. But to where this question is going, saying you can't build single-family residential does not mean you could not build tourist transient in general commercial. It's now going to filter you into condominium, or not, excuse me, not condominium. It's going to filter you into hotel, motel. So it's really, I think, to the extent I don't think it's actually taking away a commercial use, maybe taking away that residential use, but there's still a way of skinning the cat with the hotel, motel definitions without needing it to be a short-term rental to get to transient rental within general commercial and TC.
But the
We're not
trend
gonna-
seems to be them buying these particular lots and building, vacation rentals. Is that, have they been, this has been talked about for a long time, on and off. And I don't remember the real reasons that it didn't get done in the past, but, there must have been something that prevailed. I don't remember what the thought was.
I tell you a little bit. It has come up, and Larry brought it up, and I think Larry raised it. I don't know if it was planning or commission or which or both. But at the end of the day, there's always been enough resistance from the public and from the dais that it's just never gone anywhere. So I think what you're saying is my experience of it too. Is there just has not been the political will for it.
I mean, have these vacation rentals really been that much of a problem? Is that why we're doing this?
I don't think
reason?
it's not a vacation rental problem when you're talking about your commercial districts. The vacation rental problem we were talking about earlier is when they spill into your residential zoning districts. The issue I think both that Lupita is raising and that Larry used to raise is the loss of commercial to residential. Because again, remember where I started off and just kind of framing everything. A short-term rental, vacation rental that we're talking about when we're talking about the vacation rental ordinance is by zoning a single-family property. I can stop renting it tomorrow and turn it back into my homestead residence. Or for that matter, I can have it homesteaded. If I'm only renting it less than half the year, it can be homesteaded and a short-term rental. But I can turn it back into a permanent residence tomorrow if I wanted to. All I got to do is move back into it and stop renting it. And so that property is technically a residential property. So I think both where Lupita's coming from and where Larry was coming from before was ultimately a loss of true commercial to residential. I think that's the issue. It's not that vacation rental is a problem, because again, you could build hotel motel on that same site. It's not the transient lodging in this case that's the problem. It's the loss of true commercial, because you're talking about a structure that really is a residential structure that could become a residential use again tomorrow without any other involvement from the city. No approval necessary, just it was a rental today, tomorrow it's my home. And that's the challenge that short-term rentals bring.
Paul? So I understand that, and that totally makes sense for general commercial. I guess what is the vision for tourist commercial then? 'Cause I feel like a big component of tourist commercial would be rentals, right? I guess could you explain the distinction between general
Okay, so
and tourist in this vision of wanting to encourage commercial?
Mr. Barnhill could have avoided the park and the city commission and then built a big single-family home that took care of all, 8 rooms and had 2 parking spaces because it's a single-family home. So we would have lost mobility potentially if we hurry up and get it adopted. So, so I'm glad he went the commercial route, right? Because it's commercial property. So let me, if I can, I do have what's permitted in tourist commercial and what's permitted in general commercial, if I can get to my,
Well, Lupita's
Yes,
looking for that. I just want to say that in years past, when I was more involved in construction along A1A, the rule was that you had to come in and appear before the PAR board if you were going to build a residence in tourist commercial, only because they wanted you to stand in front of the group and say you recognize that somebody could build commercial beside you. That's all it was to say, I recognize that.
Exactly right.
And we still do
And
that.
it's still in the code. Yeah, the code says it's a special exception in tourist commercial.
And the thing is, it's been available to people to build commercial there if they, if they wanted to build something other than residential. I think's how they typically word it. But it's been available to them at the same time as the people that have bought these lots over a period of time. So it's not like they're beating down the door to build a bunch of businesses up and down A1A. I don't know, but
And the problem that I have with it is that many times we have an alley behind on the south end mostly, driveways to have parking in the front or coming across the sidewalk. The south end of A1A, the traffic patterns are very difficult with the curbing and the narrow lane. It just makes it difficult to have commercial on those lots. They're so much more predisposed to being residential, but I don't know.
well, it's ultimately a legislative decision on, and what vision that we, do we want to embrace for the city for our commercial tax base. So it's, but having a competing is very time consuming.
So could you clarify again, which types of residential you would like to exclude and which ones would be allowable?
Yes,
I think you mentioned single, duplex, whatever. Where's the line, I guess, that you're proposing?
Can I ask a question while you're looking that up?
mm-hmm.
Also, eliminating, and this is just wheels turning, asking
Sure.
questions. If we eliminate residential in commercial and then also in tourist commercial, that would affect then the tax base essentially, because you wouldn't be able to, right now we have people claiming residential and commercial, they're paying low taxes versus a commercial structure.
For an existing property, it would have no impact on that. They would still be a residential property. They'd still be residential property for their tax purposes. It would become a lawful non-conforming use. You could not, if it were to burn down to the ground, absent other provisions, you could not build it back. But short of the build back and wherever that threshold is, it's usually, is it 50% of taxable value?
Yes.
50% of taxable value you could build back, but it remains a residential property, residential use. It's just no longer, it's a lawful non-conforming use at that point.
Okay.
Zoning changes do not take away existing uses, they just kind of grandfather them in.
Okay.
And it wouldn't apply, you're saying, in mixed use, so from 11th north to
13th.
13th south
Mm-hmm.
on A1A. That's basically that's the same as the CRA.
I'm certainly,
CRA thinks the 10th.
certainly agreeable to doing this
That's right.
with the
They did
general
not-
commercial, but
They didn't, I'm sorry.
not, well, that's, I'm kind of on the fence with the tourist commercial. But the general commercial, I have no problem with eliminating, you know,
The other thing that, when Lupita and I were speaking earlier before the meeting, one thing just to keep in mind, if there are areas, especially around where zoning districts meet, if, there's ever the thought of, well, yeah, I see this big chunk here, I can see why we wouldn't want residential here, but out here on the edges where it's close to other residential, you can always adjust the boundaries of those zoning districts too, or create new zoning districts. And so that's always an option if there are those situations where, for the bulk of the district, I understand, but for this little piece of the district, maybe this piece should be treated differently. Then I think the question morphs into, do we need to create a new zoning district for that piece that you're talking about? If, now, that's all hypothetical, obviously, but it's just something to keep in mind that, when we talk about zoning districts, we're also talking about something that's changeable.
Yeah, and that's kind of where I was with what Rick just mentioned about tourist commercial is the current zoning, it kind of flip-flops back and forth between tourist commercial and residential. Like, do we know, like, why that came to be in the first place? I'm sure we don't, right? What was the thought? Like, did we-
Blocks that are tourist commercial and then residential. 17th where I'm at. It's like, yeah.
There are properties in this town where half of the property is residential and half of the property is
Yeah.
commercial.
On the north side, there's one.
Also, tourist commercial is somewhat limited with what's allowed in it. I mean, because you can't have a real estate office or an attorney's office or
Right, it's more
in tourist commercial, but you can't have general commercial. So you're limiting what can be, further what could be built. Just a
I was
thought.
around for the initial zoning stuff, and a lot of what we did was rewrite road block by block and what was there. Said, okay, so this block may be tending to go to commercial because there's a building in it, and it was pretty rudimentary, and that's the way we developed it.
Well, one way to be able to look at it is character areas. What is it, or what do you want it to be? And so that can help as far as if they wanted to be able to amend the zoning. If we did character areas, we could have recommended zonings so that it could be compatible and it could remain useful. I know from the very north end of the boundary of Flagler Beach, we have a car wash, and then we don't have another business, until the 2100 block, and everything in between is either vacant or residential, but it's zoned tourist commercial. So, not at this workshop, but at some workshop, we could take a look at those zoning districts. I know that we did a special exception for a townhome in an area that is flumed low-density residential and zoned low-density residential, when all around it is duplex and multifamily. So it should be MDR.
Well, isn't this application for the Crego house, isn't this right beside the Java Joint?
It is, but it's outside of the mixed-use boundary.
I got that.
Yes, it is, and boy, yes.
So would the single-family residential be a special exception use, or just no altogether?
Well,
Currently a special exception in tourist.
Oh, it already is, okay.
and so I couldn't ask you a question because I couldn't get on the, now I can. So,
While she's looking, but while it's a special exception to commercial, what was stated earlier, that is exactly how that special exception is treated. It was an opportunity for the applicant to come in here, stand at the podium, have that planning board ask, you understand that there could be commercial that goes in right next to you. You understand there's a bar could go right next door to you. Yes, sir, we understand. That was the extent of those special exception hearings.
Still doesn't stop them from, yeah, still our number one complaint. We're like, well, you built in general commercial, a residential home.
okay, so, what's allowed in tourist commercial is motels, hotels, bed and breakfast, restaurants, gift shops, Convenience such as beauty or barber shop, laundromat, newsstand, off-street parking and loading, commercial recreational entertainment facilities, boat and marina supply sales, marinas, resort dwellings, resort condominiums, and mixed use within the defined boundary, and all principal uses permitted in MDR. And so those principal uses in MDR include single-family dwellings, two-family dwellings, townhome, multifamily, parks and rec facilities, essential public services, and community residential homes. And then what is an accessory is home occupations, swimming pools, customary uses, and special exception, daycares, nursing homes, churches, public facilities, schools, arts and crafts. So that's what's allowed in MDR. Those are the permitted uses in MDR. So if we did eliminate single family, two family, townhome, and multifamily out of what that would be helpful.
So I'm just looking at the map here. On the north side in tourist commercial, there's what I can see being this big, just 6 empty lots left. So everything's already been determined. So they would not be able to build a single-family residence on those lots. And they are very close to town anyway. They're on like 5th Street, 4th Street, 6th. So they would have to be a business instead of a single-family potential Airbnb style.
Well, if they're on 5th Street, they could do a mixed use.
All right.
Yep, they're allowed to do a
So
mixed
it's
use.
really not even going to be applicable to the north side then.
No,
Hurricane.
I don't know, how much, MDR do we have left vacant? Do you know?
Mostly on back streets, I think, isn't it? Yeah. It's not much on A1A.
I know we have about 1% of our land that's vacant.
MDR's on A1A up by me.
Yes,
Yeah, it's all already
All built.
condos down
Blocks in there.
So, Lapita,
Sure.
so that more people in these
Two ones
zoning
out
places will do what Mr. Thornhill's trying to do. And do what's happening down here next to the wine shop. There's 3 or 4 Airbnbs there.
that are single-family homes.
That's the idea, is just design it so that it's hotel, motel, overnight stay type thing, as opposed to single family.
Hey,
Okay.
Scott, grab your mic.
Oh, sorry.
Yes, I think there's a second aspect to it, but yes, I think that's the first one. It's controlling, because right now, and I think the conflict in the code that Lupita keeps referencing, is you have commercial development standards and residential development standards, but then when you're building a residential structure in the commercial district, you're building now a residential standard structure, and doesn't have the commercial look, and so that's the first half of it. The second half of the impact would be, is that right now, with it allowing single-family residential, if I were to build hotel motel, and I wanted to convert, I come and I say there, I want to say, well, I want to live there. I'm going to convert it into a single-family residence. The code will allow me to do that. I can convert that to because your code allows single-family residence. I can live in a structure that was built initially to be commercial. Once that code changes, that you can no longer make that conversion of a commercial into a residential.
The thing is, there aren't that many lots left, and you can't do like a stretch of something. So you can't put a whole bunch of commercial together, or do another set of condos or whatever along the ocean front.
But
I
you
would
can
think
redevelop.
that what you can build on some of these small lots, as far as commercial goes, you might get more taxes out of the single family home instead of 3-story, 4,000 square foot house. So, I just don't know, we got that much vacant stuff. Like I said, I'd like the idea of not doing it on any general commercial, but
Well, I'd like to be
the
able to add that, you know, right now, I mean, it might be built, but the name of the game is redevelopment. So anything can be knocked down and built, so.
And we're only one season away from anything else. We never know the unknown.
And just with that in mind, because
Yeah.
I think to if, for instance, if the actual map laid out where there were only, you know, say 5 undeveloped lots and they were all small lots that couldn't even hold a commercial development, couldn't meet commercial standards, we want to be careful on the governmental end that we're not taking away all reasonable value from the property. So there are ways of grandfathering outside the norm, which is the lawful nonconforming use. So if push came to shove on that concept, we could do something to protect those lots that would not have a use otherwise. So there are ways of legislating that problem.
Yes, including, like a shared access, if you have to have 24 feet, like Mr. Pazoli didn't have for his client.
Mm-hmm.
So there is a lot of incentives and there is a lot of flexibility in the code to be able to, have shared parking. So, those kinds of things can also preserve the integrity of what's considered a commercial property, and implement some shared parking, and then move forward with the parking plan. You know, we don't know where that is. I think the RFP is getting ready, you know, to go out. So we don't know how we can reimagine the city once we look at our appetite for parking and then some hubs, maybe, and different ways to be able to transport people around so that not everybody has to have a private vehicle on the island. So with commercial properties that are aligned together in tourist commercial, they can have a shared access, which then doesn't mean that half your lot has to be used for a 24-foot commercial access. It could be through shared. Through a shared access or shared parking, as an example. If somebody's not open in the evening or they're not open, you know, after lunch, or I'm not sure, you know, where that shared parking can come in, but you know, during the daytime if something's open and not, only open in the evening, as an example.
I think if we're going to really try to push commercial development on A1A away from residential, we have got to solve our parking problem that we keep pushing down the road as far as being able to move people around the community. And after our last meeting, where maybe the redesign of Moody Boulevard is going to continue to push vehicle access down, and we've got to find some solutions.
Yeah, I agree.
Keep building and saying we're going to pack more cars in, and
that's not going to work.
Doesn't work.
Not long term.
So what type, for the sake of running out of time, we've gotten through one, what did you want from us on the competing and or gray ordinances?
Well, for this one, it's just a consensus on how I can move forward with Drew drafting something that is going to meet what I would like for it to be met, and that's not to have that competing issue. All the time that's been taken is not the fact that it's the commercial that's the problem; it's the single-family residential.
I see that.
That it is. So if I have a consensus to move forward to remove single-family, two-family, townhome, and multifamily from it being an allowed use, that would be helpful. We can add more permitted uses in tourist commercial if we don't think that there's enough, or I don't know if a school's ever going to work on a tourist commercial, whatever is allowed.
Right.
We can re-examine what those permitted uses are, but, and then we can also provide a map of where we do currently have short-term rentals that are grandfathered in from from the single-family residential areas and where they are registered, where they're a permitted use.
But, and really, it wouldn't just be that grandfathering wouldn't just be limited to what you have as short-term rentals. That would be anything that is a single-family residential use. So you might have, long-term rentals or permanent residents that would fall into that same grandfathering.
I think that it's important if you do add more uses to tourist commercial that you include office space that is precluded right now. Because a lot of people maybe want to have a house above and an office below for some business they may own.
And that's what the project with the shared driveway with Joseph Pizzulli was going to be, like a accountant or something type of office.
I can't remember what the business was, but it was a combination, mixed use.
Remember if they said what it was.
He said something like a good business would be like an accountant, something that didn't have a lot of people coming in and out. An architect would have been a good one as well.
Yeah.
So what's our consensus gonna be?
Does this come to the regular meeting for a vote of us?
Not today, but in June. That gives us some,
This is to have you prepare something for us to review at
Yes.
a future meeting.
yes.
I'm for that.
I'm for that.
So she said, single family, duplex, townhome, and then also multifamily is what you said, right?
No, single family.
Yeah, it's single-family, two-family, townhome, multifamily.
Do we agree with multifamily? What is the definition of multifamily? That's like an apartment? Like, I think that would be okay to still be.
I thought duplex was 2, multifamily was 3 or more.
I think it's 4 or more.
So what's,
Oh, triplex, yeah.
what is what's the definition of townhome?
Townhome is, you own it's fee simple. Both sides are fee simple. A duplex is not one fee simple because one's rented in the other, and there's a difference in the firewall between townhome and.
Perfect example would be where I live at Sea-Watch is like condo, but further down south on A1A is townhouse because they own exterior walls.
Yeah, they own the land under their.
Yes.
Yeah, fee simple.
Instead of everyone owning it as a group where you own like 1/18th, you own your land underneath you.
It's not condominiumized, it's not a duplex.
Yeah.
Okay, and at that same time, we can explore some additional uses that would be applicable for tourist commercial
Okay.
and add that to.
And in looking at the documents, when it talks about percent of land coverage, and let's say somebody's gonna do 8 units, and they need to have 3,000 square feet of land for their 8 units, and they don't have it, how does that comply?
It does not, they can't do it.
Okay.
It's one of those not today's answers that I seem to give a lot.
And about the one that's in front of us, he doesn't have, never mind.
So I think I have, some direction there for that, for consideration. So we'll bring it back and then we'll see the appetite of what the city commission, the political will there might be. The next thing that I want to talk about really quick is the site development applications that you have. We'd like to either adopt those by reference or clean them up and then be able to use these, and then sooner or later move to an online, application process. So this is the beginning steps of cleaning up our application. We also did include some, that are, if Bill wants to come up, some graphics for signage to be able to demonstrate what it is, what the product is, what it looks like, what that signage is. And also, we have some illustrations for a retaining wall, the natural grade, so that we, so that people can build it. A lot of times when you get a site plan, it's two-dimensional and we can't tell how high it's going to be. So this is going to help to a picture's worth 1,000 words to be able to explain, how it can be implemented. So and also Mr. Pizzulli brought it up that we needed some and here they are. So, we can take one more look at those applications and then bring them back so that we can, either tweak them, so we can either, tweak them, add to them, make it more descriptive, whatever it may be, but it would be great to have updated applications and then move towards having them online. Go ahead, Bill.
On those drawings, basically all I did was put into picture what the words were saying. It makes it easier on both staff and anybody from the general public or other designers who are just trying to basically decipher what the land development code says.
So I just had a couple of questions on the, not the drawings that you did, but on the reconfiguration, land division, lot split, or parcel reconfiguration.
Okay.
I did one recently, and it was a bear trying to follow what the city was expecting. And I had a, so I'm on, I don't know what page this is.
Page 44.
44.
Yes, I see it here.
For some reason, I had a problem with the surveyor producing an 8.5 by 14 page that the city wanted it that dimension. And we went round and round and round, and I didn't understand why that was so important. Because everything gets scanned anyway.
Yes. Well, it's only important from our realm because the city commission wants to be able to see it and see it big. But we can take time for you all to look at them and make your comments, such as this one. If there's another recommendation for that, we can certainly amend those.
Okay, well,
I'm not sure where that 8.5 by 14.
Yeah, I just didn't get that. I mean, and I had an
Fair enough, yeah.
surveyor maybe. And then down below it says list all wetlands, and they're talking about the surveyor doing that. And in my history with surveyors, they don't really know wetlands well. And does this not need to be done by a proper
Yes, it would.
wetlands expert?
A wetland delineation would require that, and, aren't there a lot of times, Bill, on the survey?
Yeah, usually a wetland delineation is placed on a survey. Obviously, the surveyor doesn't perform the wetland delineation, but he puts it on there.
Okay, so we're just not going to clarify how it has to get there. All right. And then why do you have to have a current title opinion to reconfigure, to put two lots back together?
Well, you have to own it, for one.
Well, you have to prove that with your application or your deed, and
What-
then it says show a proposed draft deed.
Where do you see that?
Number 9 under C was the title opinion, and the next page under E it says prepare a draft deed for the proposed parcel. It had been previously divided, and we just went through so much work for that.
Okay, so we can, delete 9. I don't think it's gonna matter. And then change number 1 to 11 by 17. And we can have a comment period for this so that you can look at it and then get back to me. And then once we have your comments, we can then put it back onto the agenda.
Okay.
So we have, let's see, 5 more minutes. So I'll get comments back from you all for some of the applications. And then we can work with Michelle and Bill so that they align for all departments, which is important. And then bring it back to you along with the graphics that we're going to adopt. If that's what I have a consensus for the June or July agenda.
That's needed an upgrade for a while, the application and checklist. So glad to see it.
Non-residential. Because the residential one was updated, but this is all or is it, no?
Yes, it's not, we do,
The land division is not, but the other one is.
and then lastly what I have is, a very, very draft of the zoning map because it doesn't have the streets, so it's not, all the labels are not there that we're gonna have. but, you can see that, Veranda Bay and Summertown are in the map now, and then we have some other zoning updates. The golf course, Flume, and zoning amendment as one example. So, we can. You can keep the zoning map. It's draft and it's as up to date as we have it, but you'll see some more amendments, and then if we do have another workshop where we can consider some character areas, if you keep that map and bring that map, you can write on it, color it. If you see some areas that are single family, like we do with the special exception, that should be medium density residential, we can do that at the next following meeting. And so I appreciate the time you took for this workshop, and I look forward to coming back with some ideas that can help streamline and strengthen. So thank you. Thank you, Bill.
Mm-hmm. Do we have a motion to adjourn? We will resume at 5:30 for the Planning and Architectural Review Board meeting. Review Board meeting today is Tuesday, May 5th, 2026. It's 5:30. Can we please stand for the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag
standing as one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Do we have a motion for the April 7th meeting? Meeting minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Thank you. Oop, I left out there, roll call. Paul McKitka.
Yep.
Barbara Revels. Here. Scott Chapin.
Here.
Susie Johnston. Here. Lisa Smith. Here. Rick Belhammer.
Here.
Okay. Item 5, old business. Lupita.
So this is final site plan application PMS 26-0002, Flagler Beach Vacation Rentals located at 1708 South Ocean Shore Boulevard. The applicant is Mr. Barnhill. The request is for a final site plan approval to construct a 3-story, 8-unit oceanfront vacation in the tourist commercial zoning district. So the existing condition is that it's a 8,600 plus or minus square feet vacant undeveloped land. It fronts on North Ocean Boulevard. The property to the north is a vacant undeveloped lot, which is zoned tourist commercial. Property to the east is Highway A1A, oceanfront. Property to the south is zone TC with an adjacent use listed as multifamily. And the property to the west is an existing unapproved right-of-way, which abuts a single-family residential district. So in accordance with section 20202, the proposed parking area for the guests was originally designed in the rear with access from the unapproved right-of-way alley and included 2 parking spaces for primary access from A1A. The PARB recommended that the City Commission approve the site plan with the condition that the unapproved alley be stabilized and they meet the city standards for improved alleys. The City Commission voted that the applicant return to the PARB board with an amended design for the parking area to be in the front with primary access from A1A. The applicant also made additions to the design after meeting with Mr. Pizzoli by adding dormers and additionally relocating the parking plan from the rear to the front of the lot with access off of A1A. So he meets the definitions for hotel, and it's a proposed project that meets the permitted uses in tourist commercial. He is providing 11 parking spaces. I did have my staff report amended. He has 10 parking spaces plus 1 handicap, and then room for 2 in the back, but we're only identifying as 1. So he has a total of 11 parking spaces, and he meets all the design, site planning design principles, except for the political will from the City Commission to have the parking in the rear, and so it doesn't abide by the design guidelines and mobility plan to reduce speed, and however, it's a legislative.
Where is the 11th parking space?
There's 2. There's room for 2 in the back, but there's
Okay, I believe you.
do we have that, or did you give us it up?
Not on the drawing. In the front. Amended. Oh, we're just supposed to know that those are parking spaces?
Not labeled as such.
Not labeled? Okay. And this is single family back here. I'm sorry. Okay.
Lupita,
Yeah.
is he required 10? I know it's 8 per unit, 1 per unit, 8 units. Then it's 1 per 5.
9.
So that would make the,
We
I
have,
thought it was if it was
and then we have an ADA,
okay.
and then, not labeled, but room in the back, because he could put put it further back with the setbacks, but, so there's room in the back for two, but we're only labeling as one, so 11 total.
And so the zoning of the property behind this is single family?
Yes,
And this is a commercial enterprise?
yes.
I didn't think we were going to allow parking for commercial enterprise in opposite single family.
The only time it's not allowed, rear parking is from Central Avenue. So from Central Avenue, from multifamily and commercial, you cannot come in from Central Avenue if it abuts to Central, if it goes from Ocean Shore to Central. With the alleyway, you can use the alleyway.
I had that question too, but then I had to remember that Beachfront Grill and Oceanside were on Central. That's why they have that fence that way.
Could I jump in?
Yeah.
So, what was requested is that primary access could not be from the rear. So that's why the parking was moved to the front. So the primary access is now at the front. That's where you have the 10 parking spaces. There's one on the rear, on the secondary access.
Thank you.
Oh, you have a question, Rick?
I have a few
Go ahead.
concerns.
Go ahead.
I don't know whether we're gonna talk more, but.
No, go ahead, please.
We do up here, but, yeah, I've done my, looking at different things in parts of the land development code that I feel relevant. I think on this, if there's gonna be parking in the rear, that ought to be indicated on this site plan. So I would, expect that to be done before it goes to the commission. The trash receptacles have to be, they have to be screened on all sides. So that's how it's written. AC units across the back, they all have to be screened. That's in there also, it's in the land development code. And an odd one, and it's not gonna make Mr. Barnhill real happy, I don't think, but it says required screening where any non-residential use directly abuts a residential zone or residentially developed site. So, since he's adjacent to an existing single-family home, you have to build a wall between your building and theirs. And it says, it shall be screened from the adjoining residential zone in the following manner. A solid decorative located completely within the limits of the non-residential property so as to provide ample area for maintenance and repair on the residential side. There has to be a space between the property line and the wall to do maintenance on the wall. That's what I'm reading. And each architectural treatment on both sides with the final product, if painted, finished, should be painted the same color as the principal building on the site. So that's what I ran across in land development code.
So my understanding of that would be a commercial property that does not have an alleyway, that abuts residential property. But he does have a 6-foot-high wood fence that's identified on the site plan.
If you're reading it here,
Read it, say a but or a Jason?
you wanna see it?
Just read it. Does it say a but?
Required screening where any non-residential use directly abuts a residential
A
zone.
but means but.
Next door to each other, correct?
Correct, but not across the street from each other.
No, I'm not saying
Okay.
across the street.
Yeah, a but would be where it
I'm
bumps.
talking about the south side of his building, between him and the existing residential home there.
Another
It
example,
says
on the north side.
directly abuts a residential zone or residentially developed site. So it's a residentially developed site that's to the south of it. Or where a non-residential use within a multifamily, that's not relevant. It shall be screened from the adjoining residential zone or use in the following manner. And it says you have to build a block wall, not a wood fence.
Well, it does not abut, and this is another example of a single-family home that is impacting a commercial, use. Because,
How does it not abut if it's next door to it? I don't understand. Do I have the wrong definition?
They touching?
Drew?
okay, so he has to build a masonry wall if they're touching.
Touching.
Yes, so, but it's another, I'm pointing out another example of how allowing single-family residential in tourist and general commercial undermines yes, the commercial use. And so, if we if we're going to amend the site plan, we can ask them to do a 6-foot-high masonry wall.
So just to clarify, so because there's an existing residential property directly to the south, even though it's in tourist commercial, we would need a wall there. But since the lot to the north is currently vacant, we would not need a wall there. And because there's an alley to the west, we would not need a wall there.
Yeah, because it goes on to say if there's something within 25 feet of the property, so going across is more than 25.
Right, okay. So it's just because of the existing use.
Right, but to that code section, to the extent it touches, where it touches is where the wall is.
To
It
the
would be
south.
on that side.
Just the
correct.
south side only.
Question, does that work fast forward into the future when someone goes to build on 1700 Ocean Shore South? Will they then need to construct the wall? Because then the property would be abutting the tourist, commercial, the hotel motel. Because right now we're building it it would be on the south wall, where it would be abutting 1712, and that wall would then fall, the cost would fall on Barnhill.
Let me make sure I understand. So your question is, so if on the north side, if a residential were to come in later,
Correct.
the wall requirement is at the time of building. So if the commercial comes first and the residential comes later, you're past site plan.
Okay.
That requirement kicks in at site plan. If there's an after-the-fact residential developed, the residential is free to build a wall if they want to, but they would not be required to, nor would the commercial that's already there.
Because it could also be commercial that goes in on that corner. We don't know that yet.
Well, especially if we amend it to tourist commercial and general commercial.
So,
So that problem may be eliminated if we have political will to maintain general and tourist commercial as general and tourist commercial.
What is that section number, Rick? I'll just write it down.
And so I was asking this in a workshop of the city engineer, and he explained that water retention or how he's going to manage his water runoff is not, we don't discuss that here, it's going to happen later, because this site is 100% covered with impervious material.
Impervious, yes.
can you
Isn't it pervious?
copies one of this?
Yeah, the pervious.
One for Drew and one for
So once we actually go into building permitting, that's when we actually do our final technical review of everything. And we require permits from Water Management District and DOT and anybody else associated with this, with the development of this property. At that time, of course, that's where we will look at what type of stormwater retention is going to be provided. I would assume it's going to be some sort of pervious pavement, and that's where the retention will be.
Similar to the parking, I would recommend that that be shown on the plans before it goes to commission. Because right now it just shows driveway pavers, and code specifically says that pavers are not pervious, considered pervious. So right now it's contradictory.
Okay, well,
And also, as to the parking in the back, you're going to have a lot of units there with those trash receptacles, and the garbage truck has to get to them, and if there's parking behind the building, it's always a problem for the poor garbage man trying to get through the alley and try to move cars and
And that's why they're invited to the site plan review at TRC, so they can make sure that their toys fit and work.
Speak up, please. We can't hear you. What did you just say about the garbage pickup?
Lupita, if you could just repeat again what you said. Sorry.
Mike.
Well,
I was questioning that the garbage receptacle locations behind the building are going to need to be accessible by the garbage crew, and in the alley and the way some people park, they may not be able to get to them if something's not accommodating, because you're telling us that there's parking spaces back here.
Well, they have to screen it on all four sides, so they could make a gate on the west side of that containment, and there would always be access directly to the
It depends on what
trash
the
receptacle.
trash receptacles are, as far as the tipping carts that they might hook up to the truck, and it depends on what style receptacles they put there.
so we'll have to take that in consideration when again, with the sanitation crew, because they were at the technical review, so I don't know if these get moved out or,
So Lupita, you're saying the sanitation department will be part, or has been, or will be part of a technical review to confirm that the trash is acceptable, or accessible?
yes, I mean, in other areas of the city, where it may not exactly fit, we did come up with something that could be a standard so that it is covered and that the sanitation truck and folks can get to it and still meet code. So you might see a little code that says up to 6 feet or whatever it is, in case they're lower at 4 feet. But it is addressing the commercial uses for sanitation.
Okay, everybody heard that, Tom, I hope.
I'm just recapping in my head. So right now we needed an added concrete wall to meet land development code, parking delineated in the back, pavers to be delineated that they are also pervious.
Screen the air conditioners. The mechanicals in the rear of the building have to be screened.
And,
And the trash receptacles have to be, concealed or contained within 4 walls.
okay,
Chair, did you say indicate on the site plan all parking spots?
correct, including the 2 in the rear. Question with that,
We're only adding 1 in the rear.
1, okay.
So it'll be on the condition of the concrete wall, adding the parking label, adding that the sanitation is contained, and that the HVAC units are screened, and that we have pervious pavers for parking. Anything else? Yes, sir.
Yeah, the parking, where the cars backing out of the handicap spot, are there gonna be any poles or bollards or anything to protect that door from getting backed into, the building getting backed into?
I think that's just a patio. I don't know if that's a building.
Well, the building's, what, 6 feet away from it, so I didn't know if that was a safety thing, if there should be something there.
I think it meets, I mean, it does meet the radius there. Okay.
Be hiring a contractor when they back through the front door, that's all.
Any other questions on the dais? We could bring the applicant up if you have anything you'd like to add. The applicant.
Pastor Barnhill?
Mr. Barnhill, would you like to come up?
Down is up. Okay. Thank you for all of the appropriate suggestions, we will endeavor to do all of those things and whatever else we encounter is required to go through the permitting process. You're very familiar with the project, so there are many things that have already been said that I'll not repeat. The site plan, I suppose, is the thing that everybody is focusing on appropriately. So my understanding was that the parking in the front, being 9 regular parking spots and 1 handicap spot, was adequate for an 8-unit building, 1-bedroom apartments. I viewed the alleyway as, basically an alleyway. You pick up trash, and if occasionally someone, a tradesman or somebody, needed to come and park, a parallel park in the back, then there was plenty of room for that. I can go through the whole thing again, but you guys have obviously studied it intently. So let me just stop there, and if you got any other questions about the site plan, I'd be happy to say that I'm going to accommodate all of the suggestions.
Well, if you just delineate that parking space in the rear on your site plan, now you've overcompensated with parking. You'll be a real champion for that. It's going to be favors anyway, right? So
100%. And my instruction to the design person was that all of this would be, the type of pavers that you've got out here that are pervious. The whole bit. Yeah. So it's just confusion in the way in which he has labeled things. I'd be happy to, show a parallel parking spot in the rear. And, okay.
Okay. Any other questions on the dais for the applicant before we open it up for public comment? Oh, thank you, Mr. Barnhill. We will open it up for public comment. You have 3 minutes to speak. Please come to the podium, state your name and address.
You can come out. You don't have to be called. Come on.
My name is Thomas Hagman, and my residence is 914 South Ocean Shore Boulevard. I have a question about the screening wall. That's going to be a masonry wall, and is it permitted to have it directly on the property line? Or I heard something about a setback. Does it have to be set back so that the owner can come around and do maintenance, pressure washing, and whatever? And if there is a setback, what is the length of that setback? I guess what's ever practical to be able to perform repairs?
well, we'll answer.
Yeah, we'll answer that once all public comment is completed.
Okay.
Okay, perfect.
Great, that's my only question. Thanks.
Okay. Anyone else for public comment like to come forward?
Yeah, Mike Archer. I don't want to come up here and just complain, but I want to say I'm extremely disappointed to find that the plans have changed since the report was filed last week. I looked at the report as it came out. I studied it thoroughly. I prepared many comments. I wrote a letter to the president and one of the other commissioners. Obviously, you didn't get that letter or any comments from it, because every area made on that report is still something you're talking about. This gentleman over here owns the house that you said was a multi-family home. It's a single residence family. North is south, south is north on your letter. So how this got changed, and basically what I heard today solved all the things that I was concerned about, which was, why isn't there a fence in the back? Obviously, there's going to be parking. Yep, there's going to be parking. The trash containers aren't enclosed. Now they're going to be enclosed. The masonry wall was a surprise to me. I'm sure a surprise to Mr. Barnhill as well, but still, that's fine. It's a moot point as far as I'm concerned. Following the rules is what it's about. Why in the world a staff report was issued for approval with errors in it, and then it changed, but it didn't change completely, just the drawings changed. I don't understand the process here, but as someone from the public, trying to follow this process and be professional about it, and not get up here and complain, has become, I'm done. I just hope you all realize how foolish you look.
Would anyone else like to come forward for public comment? With that, we'll close public comment. Drew, did you want to comment on the wall setback?
So I have the code section right here. It's located completely within the limits of the non-residential property so as to provide ample area for maintenance and repair on the residential side. Ample room meaning? Adequate for what the work that would need to be done.
Any guy, that guy, okay, he's fine.
All I do is we'll tell you what the code says. If it's on right on the property line, that would not be ample. There has to be room for a reasonable person to get back there and perform maintenance. There would have to be room, I can read you what the code says. Ample area for maintenance and repair. I can read you what the code says.
And what we can do is we can add into, on our workshop that we just had, if you reviewed the agenda, it said for gray area. And these are the types of things that we are working on as a body here, working on gray area where things need specific delineation. Several times over the years, we have workshops where we go through the land development code section by section. And the public is always welcome. We sit down with the city commission and also the planning and architectural review board, and we go through it line by line, and we try to find errors of gray exactly like that, to be able to say minimum X number of inches or X number of feet.
Can I just
Yes.
add, please, that doing block walls, retaining walls, and having them available to be worked on the opposite outside. When we build 3-story buildings in Flagler Beach on 50-foot lots with 5-foot side yard setback, you can't get a ladder at the proper angle of repose to work. You have to be on somebody else's property to get up to work on it. So how you can actually get space with these narrow lots to do maintenance on these structures is extremely difficult. And I don't know how you put it in the code. I really don't.
It has been discussed internally with staff because we have had just a lot of issues, particularly with single-family residences and general commercial. So somebody can stand on top of the wall with scaffolding and be able to address painting or maintenance. There is a code well, no, he just read the code, so we don't have an exact how far you can.
Excuse me. Let's please have decorum.
So, if it can be, there is a general contractor right now that supposedly is going to work from a scaffolding on top of the wall, so he does not have to be trespassing on somebody else's property, because this individual I don't think was going to allow that person to be able to come onto the property to do that. So there has to be some cooperation in order for that to be able to be met with such small lots. And unless there's that cooperation, I guess you're going to have to find a different way, like standing on top of a wall or scaffolding in order to be able to complete the work.
Understandable. We do have some older lots in the city that are built that before we actually had to have surveys and back way in the day, that I noticed that the AC unit's almost sitting underneath the neighbor's access point to their stairs to their house, and that's the type of situation.
It is.
the distance behind that wall could vary depending on how the wall was finished. So if you were to want to stucco that wall, then you're gonna need to get around there and stucco it.
Mm-hmm.
But if you leave it unfinished and you just paint it, then what do you need? The thickness of the rollers that you reach over the wall and paint it. So, you know, it varies on the finish of the wall, I would think. The depth.
But I would
You know,
say when you're revising the land development code, that falls upon the homeowner, and there should be a specific setback that we'll have to come up with during a workshop.
Work with your neighbors.
It's kind of unfair to somebody that does not do a finish on the wall and all they have to do is paint it. So then they don't have to allow 2 feet or more for somebody to get physically on the other side of the wall on the ground.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to stucco that wall, it's almost what you have to do. I guess you could do it. You hang somebody upside down off a crane. But otherwise, you know, it would vary depending on how you want to finish that wall.
Good call out. All right. Do we have a recommendation for 5A?
I'll make a motion that we recommend approval with the notes, the changes that we indicated.
And that would be the,
Who's got it? Or somebody?
Okay, I'll go down my list. Indicate all parking spaces, screen all trash receptacles, screen all AC units, site plan amended to reflect a wall where required by code.
Impervious pavers.
Show the pervious pavers on the site plan. These weren't so much comments for revisions to site plan, but comments for check on items were to check on conflicts between parking and sanitation vehicle movement, and there was also a concern about parking with the proximity to the structure and if there was any need to have some type of vehicle versus building, like a curb stop there to protect the building from vehicle. But those weren't necessarily changes, those were just take a look at items. So those are the items that I captured.
okay,
I will second that.
all right. Can we get a roll call?
Rick Bellhumer.
Yes.
Lisa Smith. Yes. Scott Chapis.
Yes.
Barbara Rebels.
Yes.
Paul McKitka.
Yes.
Chair Johnston.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Barnhill. And we'll
Have a
see
good
you,
evening.
we'll see you in June for your final site plan.
All right, item 6A. Lupita,
I think Drew, you
Drew,
first.
I wasn't sure who's going to read
That's
this
an
one.
ordinance reading.
We don't have 3 titles here, so
Okay, all right.
go straight to your introduction.
Okay. So this is a staff report for 1115 Central Avenue, a small-scale flume amendment. The applicant is Zev Cohen and Associates from Ormond Beach. The project address is 1115 Central Avenue. The zoning is currently single-family residential. It's low density. The overlay is the A1A retail corridor along Ocean Shore, not exactly this property. The existing condition is a 5,000 square foot vacant undeveloped corner lot. The property to the north is zoned single family residential. To the south it abuts right away 12th Street South. Property to the east is zoned general commercial, and property to the west is a right of way Central Avenue, which abuts a single family residential district. So the applicant is requesting a small-scale flume amendment from low density to commercial to allow for redevelopment of the site as a parking area to support a proposed seafood, steak restaurant, and fish market adjacent to the site, 108 South 12th Street and 1104 South Ocean Shore Boulevard. The proposed surface parking area at 1115 South Central yields approximately 12 parking spaces. So should the small-scale flume be approved legislatively and become part of a future proposed redevelopment project, under construction shall subscribe to the appropriate adopted character area district development standards, which extend to South 13th Street in accordance with Ordinance 2015-05, the downtown A1A retail corridor. And additionally, the city has implemented minimum construction standards for surface parking that shall apply. So the potential benefits are that it helps meet demand-driven parking needs. It enables business creation and fosters redevelopment of existing sites. It improves a vacant lot already used for surface parking without minimum applicable standards for stormwater runoff, erosion, lighting, landscaping, etc. And the Flumen zoning amendments to permit parking allow for optimal land utilization, organized parking, and allow for enhanced drainage or infrastructure. There's some considerations also to consider. Encroachment of commercial use on adjacent residential neighborhood can potentially spark strong opposition from neighbors. Additionally, the parking access would have to be from 12th Street, not from Central Avenue, although I did not include that in my report. It's part of the code not to allow access from Central Avenue. So the total square foot of the proposed steak restaurant is unknown. The formula for required parking based on occupancy and square footage it is 1,000 square feet divided by 15, that's the max occupancy. So the parking spaces required for an example would be about 17. So on-site parking for the proposed development, including the GC properties, potentially yields 24 parking spaces. So the staff recommends that the PARB recommend that the City Commission approve the small-scale full amendment from low density to commercial on the condition it will meet parking requirements for the proposed development, that minimum construction standards for surface parking lots be applied, and neighborhood concerns, if any, be mitigated. Thank you.
Would the, Rick, go ahead. I was going to ask the applicant to
I-
come up since he had
oh,
a
okay.
presentation.
He's got a presentation.
Yes, first.
Okay. Wait.
Good evening, Clay Urban with the firm of Zeb Cohen and Associates, 300 Interchange Boulevard, Ormond Beach, Florida, 32714. Thank you very much for letting us present tonight. We look forward to working with the city on this project. At the heart of it, it is a redevelopment project. This down is up. So what we have right now are folks interested in redeveloping an existing hotel and restaurant and spa. They're located at 1104 Ocean Shore and 108 12th Street. As part of that redevelopment, we're looking at what has to be done in order to not only meet your code, but make it effective for them so they can have a successful business. We may be able to meet your parking requirements, but if it's going to overload the parking and we're not going to have customers that are happy, they're not going to be there. So the fact is we're trying to work through with your staff to comply with your code requirements and work through to make sure that this is an effective use for this business. The existing site, as I said, is currently being used for actually for parking without a formal approval from the city. If you drive by the site, you'll see that there's actually parking signs in there that reserve the area for the Golden Magnolia Spa and Resort. Here's the location map. As you can see, we're looking over here at the northeast corner of Central and 12th. It's adjacent to the existing spa that is utilized by Golden Magnolia. Adjacent to it, to the north, is a home. And then you can see the existing hotel up at the northeast corner of 11th and Ocean Shore. This shows the existing land use and zoning, where you have the low-density residential land use and the R1 single-family zoning. Here's our request to include this as commercial and change the zoning to general commercial in this area to accommodate the parking use. This is, again, some photographs from Google Earth that reflect what the existing condition is out there. As you can see from the plan view, the aerial view, there were cars parking on the property. It's hard to see, but there are parking signs on the property from the lane view there. When we met with the business owners who were looking to go in here, they came up with some concepts. And the number one thing they wanted to do was be effective in reuse of the site. They realized that many of the neighbors and many of the folks who were frequent the site are aware of what's going on there. They want to see that same scale. They want to see it so that it's not overwhelming. So what you're seeing is a reuse of those existing buildings. They're going to be addressing existing code violations that are out there where fines are currently accruing. So the whole point is to try and bring it into compliance as quickly and as effectively as we can. You can see that portion that we have the parking on. Access is shown off Central. This was done preliminarily. This was basically reflecting trying to maximize the space, but still providing for a buffer and the location of a wall adjacent to that residential, and still providing for landscaping along 12th. We took that and kind of utilized some of the tools we have in-house to kind of visualize what this would look like. So this way you could have a better understanding of why it's coming in, why we feel it's appropriate, and how we can address the concerns of anyone who is adjacent to it. As you can see, we've utilized both the right-of-way and a buffer adjacent to 12th, and we're utilizing a 5-foot buffer between the home, and we understand that a wall is required anytime you come in where you have interface of commercial abutting single family. The pool, those areas that it is currently would be a courtyard of some sort, because obviously you don't want necessarily a pool associated with a restaurant type use. They're also looking at basically keeping the footprint the same, but there may be a need to add something in to accommodate elevators if that is needed to address the ADA compliance requirements. When we were going through the application, one of the things that stood out to our staff was that you do have a vision statement, and we were trying to make sure that we were sticking very closely with this. We do not want to necessarily try and put a square peg in a round hole. What we're trying to do here, again, is take an existing set of sites that are separate parcels, 3 separate parcels. 2 of them have commercial use that could be developed for any uses that are allowed in general commercial, and provide it into a cohesive, unified, developed site. By doing so, I believe that we meet your small town appeal because, again, we're keeping the sites as they are. What we're trying to do is just accommodate parking. Quality of life, again, we're trying to maintain it so we don't interfere with those existing homes, but still allowing for folks to be able to access the proposed redevelopment site. We're looking at the natural resources. Luckily, there's nothing on the site that causes us any concern, but we still will go through and make sure that there's no gopher tortoises or any other endangered species. Responsible growth and planning. We see this as a way to allow for the continued use of these commercial sites and give both the city and the private sector an ability to improve the fiscal situation. In regards to responsiveness to the diverse needs of the citizens, again, we see that this is providing for a restaurant type use, which is expanding upon the demand y'all see growing every day with the influx of tourists and new residents. And lastly, it's friendly and welcome manner towards visitors, residents, and businesses. We see this, again, as another arrow in the quiver for Flagler Beach, in that you have now a updated site that provides a service to both the residents, existing residents, future residents, and visitors. That's my presentation. I'd like that to also apply to the following item. As we are aware, this is the first item is a future land use map amendment that is needed to be approved in order for the rezoning to be approved. So my comments apply to both of those. And I'm here to answer any questions for the board or for the public. And if it's okay, if there's any questions from the public about what's going on here, I'd like to have the ability to come back and address any concerns that they may have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Before you sit down, any questions for the applicant?
No, not specific at the moment.
I do. I have one. Why did you not ask for a special exception for parking versus asking for a rezone to commercial?
Because it's not allowed for the general commercial use, the zoning. The only was applicable for the tourist commercial.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if he were in tourist commercial, he could have requested if that were vacant at a residential. But it's not a special exception in general commercial.
Would it be their, intention to enjoin the 3 parcels? Because obviously
ma'am.
if that one is rezoned to general commercial and they're not enjoined, there could end up being a commercial building on there.
Understood. And candidly, if this board feels that the alternative is a rezoning to tourist commercial for the 2 existing general commercial properties and then a special exception for parking, that is something that we would definitely entertain. We're not looking to try to expand the footprint. We're just looking to make sure that we're going to be efficient on the site so that that way it can be utilized.
My other question for you is there any other plan, do you have any other parking details currently? Because, I mean, my quick math was saying that you're gonna need like 80 parking spaces if all of that 5,000 square feet is utilized, and just adding 12 doesn't get you much further down the road from the, like, 30 that are there now.
Yes, ma'am. You know, we understand parking is the number one concern. Anytime you see any kind of business or anything coming into Flagler Beach, y'all are loved to death. And so what I'm trying to look at right now is that based on property appraisers' information, and again, we're not certain about the final layout because we're not ready to go into detailed engineering unless we know we can get the parking. Once we know if we can get the parking, we can give you a little bit more fine-tuned information. But right now, you know, there's 4 separate buildings at 1104 Ocean Shore, and those are roughly 7,000 square feet. Is all 7,000 going to be used for the restaurant? Probably not. I can tell you that it's most likely going to be tied in, again, to other uses within there that could do that. Also, once you get the seating, as your code specifies, it's not only just based on square footage, but it's also based on seats at fixed seats or occupancy based on the Florida Building Code, whichever is going to be greatest. So that's what we're going to be looking at. And we agree, the rate is around 80, depending on the theoretical maximum. We've got 24 shown. We've got opportunities with shared parking agreements and valet parking to provide for some opportunities so that that way we can come into compliance with the code.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
And I have one other question. Go ahead. So in your initial plan, you said you had shown the access off of Central Avenue, but that would obviously go away?
Yes, ma'am. We're going to have to revise that concept plan.
Still be able to get 12 spaces if now you have a driveway coming in off of?
It all depends on what we have to do with the building that's at 108 12th Street. If we can configure that and basically use that existing paved area that they have for their 4 parking spaces and be able to have that access come in from 12th, then we would be able to potentially get to it. Well, we'll have to get the a little bit more finer detail in looking at it.
Just for clarification, for restaurants, it's no longer fixed seating, it's just occupancy.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions for the applicant? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Rick?
My memory goes back to the days that, the boys down at the Oceanside, expanded their parking through the back all the way through to Central Avenue. Now, I don't know, is Oceanside is that on a GC or?
I'm gonna have to look
Do
it
you
up.
know? But anyway, they did, and if I remember, the rezoning got done, and if my memory serves me correctly, it was part of the deal was that it perpetually be for parking.
I don't think it's rezoned. I think the rear is still single family. The rear of Oceanside is still single family.
Between 18th and 19th, right?
Mm-hmm.
Tourist, commercial, front.
So it's tourist commercial. They have a special exception for
Is that how
Parking.
that happened?
I think that's my recollection, is I think that went under that special exception procedure, so it got the special exception for, they did not rezone, but they treated it as if it had been developed in the commercial at the screening, but it was not actually rezoned, it was a special exception within the TC district.
I
Yep, it's
like the
single.
idea that it relieves parking, or helps with their parking requirements, because that business draws a lot of a lot of people, and a lot of people parking haphazard now, trying to get to that hotel to get stuff there. All right, well, I don't have a whole lot of heartburn about it since we're creating parking to relieve space for others, and as long as there isn't access off of Central, which we don't allow, if it were to perpetually be a parking lot and not turned into some other type of business down the road.
Well, that's where my heartburn comes from, because we're essentially creating an enclave of commercial in single-family residential, and what's going to change the neighbor that's to the north to now say, well, I have commercial next to me, I want to be commercial, and is it fair to the neighbor now to the west to have general commercial parking? And as much as something sounds great, we have zoning for a reason, and now we're going to have a finger that sticks out of general commercial, that what's going to prohibit someone 10 years, 20 years down the road to separate the lots, and they can legally put a gas station there. There's nothing to prohibit them from mowing it down entirely and separating the parcels out and building something new. And that's why the only way that I would be able to even have it palatable would be some sort of restriction on it for parking only and keep the zoning the same.
Yeah, or the other option that you mentioned about converting to tourist commercial and going a special exception on the residential lot. I feel
I
less.
like that idea.
I feel less scared about that.
I do too.
And to make sure that they couldn't build commercial on it, that it could be parking, but they couldn't have a commercial business back there surrounded by single family. There's got to be some way to prohibit that from the future.
That mechanism actually does that, because the underlying zoning does not change. You have just accessed that special exception use. So if it were to redirect into that tourist commercial zoning with the special exception for the parking, you actually accomplish that also, because your zoning district is still the tourist commercial, not the general commercial set of uses.
And that
But your
doesn't-
tourist commercial on the lot, then, if you change it that way, under tourist commercial,
Changed where essentially the spa is to tourist commercial. Is that what you're saying? And then they could essentially do on that spare lot, like Oceanside did, have the special exception?
Yeah, I think if you were talking a tourist commercial rezoning, you're not just talking about the .116 acres. You're talking about the entire site, so that you have a consolidated zoning for that site at that point, and it's functioning as one consistent site.
Yeah,
But you would still,
the whole site?
correct, instead of just, you would not, if you had general commercial here, it would not be typical to change a piece of that to tourist commercial. If you have one use, you would want to rezone that whole block, essentially.
the Golden Magnolia currently owns two properties, the one on Ocean Shore and the one on 12th. Those are the two that I would think would become tourist commercial. The residential property would still stay residential, but they could get a special exception to put parking on it.
Correct.
That's what I mean.
Now, how is that going to flow with Cajun Beach? It's going to be like a little, yep,
Yeah, it's like a
zigzag.
shape.
Yeah.
Yep.
I can digest that one,
Yeah. I mean,
but I cannot digest
parking.
moving that to commercial.
However, it's
What's the reason to change it to tourist commercial if the parking lot stays residential?
Because tourist commercial allows for the special exception
Oh, okay.
for residential to be parking
You get the special exception
if
through.
it's a general commercial.
Got it.
Correct.
You?
Yes, our client is just looking to try and do parking on the spot. We're trying to do it whatever path the city believes is the most effective. We're not here to disrupt the neighborhood. If y'all are concerned about that, we're willing to work with you on whatever restrictions you have to ensure that the property that's currently got the residential zoning will remain residential or parking.
Okay.
I think they were presenting good accommodations for screening and things like that. I definitely want to make sure that is still a requirement.
Because we'd want to protect that neighbor to the north and the neighbor to the west.
Correct.
Yes. If he
That's
has
the idea of not having access on Central.
Correct.
You could build a nice buffer across it.
Mhm.
So if you're looking at the proposed amendments, what would happen, if we go with the route that y'all would prefer, which it sounds like, is to not go forward with the future land use map amendment, keep the property at low-density residential that's at the corner of 12th and Central. Then the properties that are at 1104 Ocean Shore and 108 12th would be subject to a rezoning to tourist commercial, so that way we could utilize the provisions in your land development code to allow for parking on residential. And that would be approved through a special exception, which would put the restriction that it could only be used for parking or those uses allowed in the R1 zoning.
Exactly.
Good summary.
Mhm. All right, let's open it up for public comment.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Come forward, state your name, 3 minutes.
David Foster. We actually own the property to the left there. I don't know if you want to pull it up on the picture and we'll
That's
explain.
their map, we can't, like.
Can you stick it up on there, bud?
Your left or my left?
Well, if you pull up the picture, I'll show you exactly. So the White House there, on the bottom picture is property we own at the bottom. Our concerns obviously are, at the moment they're saying that people are using that for parking. Well, they do during the day, but they don't park there after 5 o'clock. It's as you see it after 5 o'clock. So our concern is that you have, I'm assuming, and we love the restaurant by the way, but the parking that's going to be there, light and noise, I assume is going to be people coming and going until 9, 10 o'clock at night. As you can see, we have windows on there. There may be a wall there, but it doesn't prevent the noise that's going to be happening every single night while the restaurant's open. You can't tell here, but lots of turtles nesting in that area, so they would need to be rehomed if that was, if it was to go ahead. The concern you talked about, once it gets changed to from residential to commercial, maybe you've addressed it, that no buildings can ever be built on it, because that's a concern. If it does go that way, then what's stopping them from building something else on top of it if they were to sell the property? You know, the people, well, obviously they've talked about how access will be coming from, I'm assuming, the A1A and coming in that way. But you know cars are going to be coming in up our road if there's traffic, coming up South Central and turning left to get into those parking spots. You've got the Cajun Grill the other side, which we actually don't hear much noise from. They're not too bad, but cars are using their parking lot behind their building, having more cars if it is up to 80. 12 spots aren't going to cover that. 13 spots aren't going to cover that. Where's the valet parking going to go around that area? It's going to affect someone else if they're saying that they're going to do valet parking and take the cars somewhere else. I can't imagine where they're going to park them around that road. That's concerning as well, a bit pie in the sky, if you ask me. And then, obviously, what it's going to do to decrease the property values, you know, around that junction. It's certainly going to affect the property value on that house. It's going to affect the property value for the people opposite in all 4 directions, because they're going to be sitting on, the hotel was one thing, and then obviously that's turned, something needs to be done with it, because, pardon my French, but it's a shithole right now. The concern is that, you know, if the restaurant was going there and wasn't impacting any of the parking, we can't control that, but we can control, or we'd like to think, we can prevent a load of parking spots that's going to be there, that's going to be affecting, you know, if we've got grandkids, if we bring them down to stay there, the noise at 9 o'clock at night when they're going to be sleeping is just, it's not fair on us, as far as I'm concerned. So that's my problems. I know you guys are going to make the decision regardless, but I think it really needs to be considered. It's going to depreciate the value. It's going to be noise after 5 o'clock. There is no noise on that junction after 5 o'clock right now. We've got other neighbours here. There's no noise on that junction. It's going to change.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. I'm on 1102 South Central, so I'm across the street from that gentleman. I got kind of specific questions to the lot. So it won't come in on Central, which really not a lot of room. Good to hear. Where can the entrance go if it's on 12th? Because there's a stop sign there. How far back does it have to go? Or where can it go from a code perspective? I don't know if anybody knows, right? Or if I can answer that. And how would that, because we're going back
Well, I
to
was
the
gonna say-
spots that you have.
Finish your comments, they'll answer comments, or they'll try to answer questions after public period is
Okay, and then from what is being paved with, again, is it something like this is requirement outside, I'm pointing to the outside, that, or it's not blacktop or anything, it's got to be from water runoff? Or what material would?
Pervious, impervious is what you're thinking?
Yes.
Okay, we'll comment on that one.
So
Okay,
thank you.
thank you. Anyone else for public comment?
Great point. Would there be parking lot lights put there? Because then again, that's going to shine
Oh,
into the house.
We have to come up to the dais, but I did hear that, so we'll throw that in the mix.
Sandra Edmonds, I'm 1110 South Central, directly across the street from this proposal. If you're looking at changing the zoning to tourist commercial, what does that allow? What does tourist commercial allow 10 years from now if they decide to sell this parking lot? What can someone build there? I need to know what is involved.
Okay,
He's correct about the noise, the turtles, the kids. We have skateboarding, surfing kids that use the 12th Street walkover. There's a lot of child traffic there. Now we're going to bring 80 cars in. Not to mention, several of the residents here, we have all put a lot of money into our houses and increased our property values. Some way more than others have put literally hundreds of thousands of dollars into these properties. And to think that something like this is just going to drop our property values overnight is pretty depressing when we've all built or revived really gorgeous places. It's a lovely corner and a tight neighborhood. And now you want to put 80 more cars there. Really think hard about who you're representing. Thank you.
anyone else for public comment? No one else? We will close public comment. Drew, did you want to address those particulars?
I think some of them probably are more for the applicant. To the extent that they're asking site plan questions, I don't think, the city doesn't have anything before it right now to tell you what the site would look like. You're just at the future land use map and zoning stage, which is just about potential uses, not what they actually look like. So the applicant may have answers to those site design questions, but the city does not. As to the last one, though, with the tourist commercial, and so that I know for anybody not familiar with the code, that part of the conversation could have definitely gotten confusing. If the ultimate decision today is to direct applicant to come back with a proposal to rezone to tourist commercial, it's actually not the .116 acres that would be talking about there. It's the larger piece that is the general commercial existing that would be down zoning to tourist commercial with the .116 staying as residential. So you'd actually be down zoning the GC to TC and keeping the residential as residential. What that changes within the code is that there is an allowance in the code for adjacent tourist commercial to seek a special exception to use an adjacent residential piece for parking. So actually your underlying zoning on the residential piece would stay as residential with a special exception for parking. So you'd actually have a more limited amount. You would have some certainty there if that is the direction that it would go, but you would not go that direction today because that would require a new application for rezoning of the other pieces of property that we've been talking about.
Paul?
Well, did you want to go through all the points that people brought up, or would you like me to
Well,
add that? Or I kind of wanted to.
you know a lot regarding to engineering, but with like lights, there would be downgrade lights, and those particulars would come forward when an application was submitted for a site plan for the special exception for parking. And the special exception would also have to come forward as a separate item to be approved. So two total entities, but go ahead, Paul, with your points.
Sure. Well, so the first comment about parking being later in the evening than the current use, I think is a valid one. Something to definitely consider in the amount of parking. Turtles, yes, obviously we need to be cognizant of that, but that's handled with current ecological restrictions. The concern about being future commercial on that corner lot, that's the exact reason why we're thinking about this alternative to the tourist commercial. Where the entrance can go, that's a great question. They'd have to try to fit it in. That's on them to figure out. Do you know, or does anyone know how close to the stop sign they can be?
Well, you can't park within 30 feet of a stop sign, I do know
What
that.
about a driveway? Do we know how close a driveway can be to a stop sign? I don't recall off the
We
top
would
of
have
my
to
head.
pull that up.
So, sorry, I don't know the answer to that.
Do you know, Luke?
I read something the other day, some about 10 feet.
10 feet?
10 feet.
So, I guess we have a few real estate professionals on the board here. Property values were brought up quite a bit. From your standpoint, if you feel like answering this or not, like, what is your thought on property values? Like, to me, if I was an owner in this area, I would welcome a redeveloped restaurant that would bring vibrancy. Do you think that would
Oh, please, hold your comments.
do you think that would increase property values or reduce property values?
That, I would say from that is actually data that would be available because we do have current properties within the city that have asked for a special exception in residential for parking. So there would be quantitative data that's out there that we could review from Oceanside, also from Beachfront Grill, and those two. When that that application would be resubmitted, that is something that we could look at.
I also think that if it's done appropriately, if it's screened with a very nice project screen, whether it's a vinyl fence or it's a block wall or whatever, and it is nicely landscaped that protects the neighbors from it, I think that it can be attractive if it's done right and if it's not let go. So maintenance and done appropriately, I don't think it would affect property values. However, let's say they crank up a band and they've got a Fins or they've got the other one down at
Well, Cajun Beach is right there, and that's the one that has the most complaints of everybody.
I was happy to hear that
yeah.
the neighbor didn't have an issue with them, so that's
So,
good to know.
anyway, where that could, anyway, just that if the use were to change, how it could affect, too much happening at night, then that could become a detriment to property.
Well, music is a special event permit that the city, that comes before you all and approved by the city commission. And so there could be conditions for noise attenuation, et cetera, placed on that. And also could be inside.
And Golden Magnolia had come before the commission years ago for a special exception for music at points. Actually, every commercial, Cajun Beach and both Golden Magnolia had.
Do I have to come up before I say something else?
No, public comments closed.
But you're making comments that I'd like to address, because you're talking about noise and music.
There's only one public comment period.
Yeah, but you haven't addressed the noise after hours that's not music, the parking, the doors banging on cars.
We did address that, but what I want you to, that application is not in front of us to really go through every single item of it being a parking lot. Right now, it's almost like we're trying to come up with a solution being theoretical, and just once he would submit an application to say, hey, that's parking, that's when we get into the weeds of being like, well, what about noise? What about the lights? People turning in, all of that. We're not at that crossroad yet.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other comments from the dais?
Well, I personally think that changing that residential lot to general commercial is a non-starter. So I would go ahead and make a motion that we recommend not approving. Is this Are we approving this, or are we making a recommendation?
You're making a recommendation, but the cleaner method, if that's the route the applicant wants to go and they want to file an application to rezone the GC piece tourist commercial, the cleanest thing for everybody would be for them to simply withdraw at this point.
Yes, we do not want to create any more issues with regards to the neighbors. We're trying to work through those. So yes, what you're seeing is if we can, I'd like to be able to withdraw this and refile.
Just a question, has there been another land use that's been in commercial that has decided to downgrade to tourist commercial on their zoning? They've always been tourist commercial.
I can't think of one, but it's, there's a property owner always has the ability to come in and ask to downzone their property. So if they're asking for it, then.
And that would affect their property value.
Correct. It's a different situation. I know it's a different situation than when a city is imposing a downzoning, which legally is permissible too, but then that raises other issues when you have property owners that are saying you're affecting my property value, you're taking uses away from me, and those arguments, those don't come into play when it's a voluntary request to rezone. And in this case, you have the facts of this one may be somewhat unique, not just in what they're seeking to do now, but you do have a piece of property that's currently GC, where its historic uses as well as its configuration really probably fit TC better than GC to begin
It's
with.
always been something that's TC.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, and actually, I just want to address one more thing. One of the public comments, said, what does TC mean? And we keep saying downgrading. So there are less permitted uses in TC than there are in GC. So GC, like if someone wanted to come and knock down the Golden Magnolia and put in a gas station, you potentially could in GC, but you wouldn't be able to in TC, that sort of thing. So
I also want to address something too. The woman in the back talked about the 80 cars. That lot would not be 80 cars. It would be, I think we figured out if you went to the guidelines, it's around 12. And once the applicant comes forward with the restaurant needing the 80 spaces, that's when that would be addressed during that time period to see if it would conform with parking and meet those requirements.
Yeah, I might have to get creative to get parking on that property.
I was thinking rip down the spa.
And accessing off of 12th Street instead of.
They might have to rip down the spa.
I don't know. Let's we'll work it out.
Okay. All right.
So we need to scrap this one and the next agenda item.
And B follows along with it, because without A, you don't even get to B.
All right.
One point of clarification. I know the property owners have filed for this and they would like us to follow through with it. They don't want to lose necessarily a place. Can we ask for this to be continued so that way we can work with your staff to get the application going for the rezoning to the tourist commercial and the special exception, and ask this to be continued out for 60 days or to the next meeting?
So, motion, it's really not a continuance since the application will be changing, but is there consensus from the board to direct staff to, assuming everything comes together in time for you to do it, to place this on the agenda for July?
That would work.
For parking.
Okay.
It just gives everybody a date certain to plan on seeing it. Again, also helps the public, I think.
And we could do the special exception and the flow and zoning simultaneously.
Okay, there shouldn't be a future land use map amendment associated. That's just rezoning. Okay, thanks.
Actually, what you're doing now actually takes the future land use map out of play, because you don't need that for that rezoning, correct? Because you already be consistent with map.
That's right.
Okay. All right. Item C. We have the consensus. Do we need any other, like, there's no roll call or anything of that nature. 6C. Lupita.
This staff report is for 2205 North Ocean Shore Boulevard. The applicant is Brent and Evelyn Kriego. The project address is 2205 North Ocean Boulevard. It's zoned tourist commercial. The future land use is general commercial. The overlay is none. The existing condition is a vacant undeveloped lot that's fronting North Ocean Shore Boulevard. Properties to the north include 5 residential homes, 2 vacant lots, and 1 commercial properties. Properties abutting the subject property to the south include a multi-tenant commercial building with professional services, office, retail, and a coffee shop. The project's description from the applicant's submittal includes a site plan for a mixed use consisting of plus or minus 600 square feet retail shop on the first floor and 3 plus or minus 813 square feet residential living areas, including 3 bedrooms, 4 baths, laundry facilities, kitchen on the second floor, rooftop area with a bathroom, and a ground level 2-car garage. The proposed parking spaces for the residential component are at the rear with access from Central Avenue, and the proposed commercial parking spaces are at the front with access off of A1A. The proposed mixed-use project is outside of the downtown mixed-use overlay boundary. The downtown mixed-use overlay is defined by the CRA boundary to the north, South 5th Street to the south, and Flagler Avenue to the west. Properties east of Central Avenue, half a block west of A1A, actually form the eastern side. So the proposed mixed-use project is outside of the A1A retail corridor characteristic boundary and the mixed-use overlay district. And that was extended north to 11th Street for properties lying within the tourist commercial district adjacent to Ocean Shore, and it was further extended to South 13th Street for properties lying within the general commercial and tourist commercial adjacent to Ocean Boulevard. So the staff recommends the PARB either deny the site plan and request the applicant submit a site plan in accordance with the permitted uses for tourist commercial, and or submit a site plan in accordance with permitted uses in medium density residential as noted in standard section 204-0208. And or the PARB can recommend the City Commission deny the site plan and request the applicant submit a site plan in accordance with permitted uses as prescribed in TC and or medium density residential. And that concludes my presentation.
Is the applicant here? Would you like to come forward?
Richard Daniels with Paul Culver Construction, 201 Osceola Avenue. The project is basically a multi-use, but it's a single-family use on the total upstairs. There's not 3 units for residential. There's a single unit, and then there's a 600 square foot space. When we first came in and dealing with Lupita in regards to what we can do there, we gave her a conceptual plan exactly what we were doing over 90 days ago. And she gave us approval that that could be done. She never mentioned that we could not park in from the rear or bring anything. Meanwhile, the residential lot next to it to the north has parking in the rear on Central Avenue. So I have 2.5 parking spaces or 2 parking spaces in the front for commercial use. And I have a garage in the rear with 1 parking space in the back. This project can be residential totally, and we can do that, but the owner's wife wanted to have a little retail shop in the front, and that's all we're talking about in commercial is the retail shop in the front. I don't understand where Lupita got 3 additional rental units. The entire second floor is the actual owner's residence. There could possibly be 1 rental space downstairs. That's what the 1 parking space in the rear is for the 1 parking residential. All commercial access would be from the front of A1A.
Okay. Do we have any questions for the applicant? So just for clarification, so it's not 3 units, it's a single-family home with 600 feet of commercial space, retail space below.
Correct.
I'm trying to see in your application where that is.
And there is a bedroom on the ground floor that could be used as a separate living unit.
Other than the kitchen.
Other than no kitchen.
So, Lapita, the parking is not allowed in the rear because of the commercial component. If it was an all residential home,
Yes,
it would
that's
be.
correct.
If it was a one use,
Yes,
not
if it was a
multi-use.
correct.
Okay.
And one of the things that, the owner is a little upset why he's not here today, and I told him that I would come and take care of this. He's now spent $45,000 in architectural fees and civil engineering fees, where if 90 days ago we were told about this parking issue in the rear, we would have never moved forward. We'd have just went solely with residential, but now we're at a point we spent $40,000 for the architectural and the civil design of the project. And less than a week ago, I got to read Lapita's recommendation and was very disappointed in it.
Yeah, I was a little confused about code. You know, it clearly states no commercial parking from Central. That's totally clear. This application appears to show only the residential parking being off Central and the commercial parking would be off A1A. So I don't know if there's a question for Drew or I don't know if there's a legal interpretation of the code.
The mixed use doesn't apply here. It doesn't extend that far.
The zoning doesn't allow mixed use, so you would not have that mix of commercial and residential.
Oh, we just can't.
So the whole site plan is.
Yeah, it's non-compliant.
Okay.
And it's not often that we go straight to signed and sealed before we've even been the part.
So it would have to be either commercial or residential in totality. Is that what you're saying?
That's right. The code sets a boundary in which mixed use is allowed.
Gotcha.
And outside that boundary, the city does not allow mixed use.
So how is the property to the north that's a 6-unit Airbnb, that's commercial?
It's Airbnb. Airbnb is by zoning single-family residential.
But it's 6 units.
Each of those would be residential, though.
Those are the condos?
So it'd be condo residential. It'd be vacation condo, not vacation rental. But that's still a residential development. Of course, it determined that Airbnb does not convert you from a residential use to commercial use. It's still a residential use.
Well, talking to the board here, I know that this project would be harmonious in the community. We're also working diligently to make Kava Coffee clean up their property over there. They've got a lot of encroachments on our property. You know, these special exceptions have allowed these corner lots just to become eyesore within the community. I mean, when you drive down A1A, the corner lot there that has that Kava junk or Kava Coffee is probably the largest eyesore I've ever seen in my life coming up A1A.
I think that's subjective to the person as well, not necessarily factual. But they are abiding by what's allowed in the zoning.
I do think that the building at the corner of 22nd, that's Job Joint building, right? They park around back with all their commercial enterprises.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
You
they
can see
park all the way
forward.
around that building.
Mm-hmm.
I've done that. I mean,
On the property appraisers, it shows the cars in the rear.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I know that was before our code. It's been added onto and grandfathered in. And,
That building was built in 1976.
Used to be a laundromat.
yeah, right,
Yes.
exactly.
I don't know. I get, my feeling was that we could work around the parking, but if mixing commercial and residential is just not allowable per code, I don't see, would that be a variance then they would have to apply for, or is that just not even a thing that they could do?
It's a zoning issue, and
Yeah.
you can't get a variance from the zoning issue. So it'd be, if you were to extend mixed use there, you'd either have to create a new mixed use district that included that property, or extend your existing mixed use
Right.
district to include that.
Yeah.
Yeah, our hands are tied.
Yeah.
So if they eliminate the commercial on this, then everything else works.
Yep, they would have to resubmit conceptual plans
We'd have to we could go straight into residential.
Yeah, you could go straight to residential, absolutely, right
Yeah.
now, until,
But my biggest concern is if the owner and I were told 90 days ago about this code, we wouldn't be here today. But we were misled by the PETA. We had all the documentation to prove it. Every bit of it.
But in all fairness, so it's your job, it's your responsibility to look this stuff up and know this thing. To know the rules. You're the builder, you're the general contractor.
Well, this isn't on me, this is on the owner. The owner came to her with all this information, and he's not, well, you guys can look at it that way, and we'll see what an attorney will think about it, but
The courts would agree with the city on that one. The courts have opined that if you're a builder, if you're a property owner and you come in with an application.
I'm not the builder and property
I'm
owner.
saying that the courts have said that an owner has a duty to understand the code, that the court will not hold against a city if, I don't know what the facts are on this one, but that is the way that the courts have come down on it.
So, Lupita and Drew, if they were to take the space down below and turn it into an apartment, now it's all residential, it's tourist commercial, it's all residential, it would comply?
if they would resubmit their site plan so I could redo it, but yes.
Proper
in-
documentation.
Yes, conceptually, a single-family residential would fit.
It wouldn't be single family.
If it was like an
It'd be
Airbnb
like an
down there
apartment on the
instead of,
first floor instead of the commercial.
So if it's not gonna be a single-family residential, what's it gonna be? A
Single
two-
family up and an apartment on the first floor.
The same as we're doing in other places
Yeah,
with
so
the
it's either like a
Short-term rental.
tourist commercials.
Which is
we got
single
them down
family,
on
but
every
we
day.
no, single,
Multi-residential, but it would be a form of residential.
two
Which is
families
allowed in tourist commercial.
right now, yes.
So
So one family, two family, whatever, and
Tourist commercial would it require a special exception? Is residential and tourist commercial special exception, Lucy?
I don't think so. I think it's just all,
That's one we were talking about earlier, right? That's where it was always tourist commercial had to come in, so unless it's changed, and I don't remember it changing, I think it is, that if it's residential and tourist commercial, that is a special exception use. And the reason being so that the owners could be informed by the planning board that commercial can go in next to you.
So I think
Trying to think.
what we're trying to clarify is that they can have this space down below for some sort of business enterprise, but only on a residential basis, not
business.
not business.
Not commercial, but operating at a
I see.
for-profit residential, essentially, which is what Airbnb is.
Yeah.
Like a home office would work.
Well, yes, for a whole different set of reasons, but that's, if it was a home occupation, state law is very generous and has changed over the last decade to allow much more for home occupations and put more restrictions on cities on what cities can restrict out of home occupations. So a home occupation, to the extent it basically meets those state standards, which is from the exterior, there's no real appearance of it being a home occupation. There's not vehicles coming and going. There's not extra parking. But so, yes, just like in a residential neighborhood, you can have home occupation. They can certainly do that there, okay. Residential and home oc.
And I'm looking at the tourist commercial right now.
yeah. Regardless,
That may not be of any interest to your customer, however, it's it's one solution potentially.
yeah, regardless, and, you know, we're not city employees. I apologize for the experience you've had, but nothing that this board can do about that. But given what our hands are tied, I'd go ahead and make the motion that we, reject or,
Recommend denial.
recommend denial, I'm sorry, of the site plan.
Second.
But I think we still need public comment.
Yes, we do. Can we open this up for public comment? Please come forward, state your name, address. Okay. Can we have a motion?
Alrighty,
I
motion.
know, but we,
Motion again. Motion to
You,
for denial.
it was made and seconded. You can,
Okay.
so you have one.
okay. Great. Roll call. Paul McKitka.
Yes.
Barbara Rebel.
Yes.
Scott Chapis.
Yes.
Lisa Smith.
Yes.
Rick Baltimore.
Yes.
Chair Johnston.
Yeah.
All right, city planner report?
City plan report, yes. So I did provide some legislative updates, that I was gonna let Drew handle.
So I remember which ones they were. There were 3 in the DPW list. The first of them,
The statutes?
Flagler Beach, there really wasn't, they did a little bit, they passed less in planning than they have in years past. So the 3 that Lupita included, the one that's, I think, most applicable to the city, it's gonna be the same applicability to all cities. And it's nothing different than what cities have been doing, basically by court-made law, for many, many years. But they've codified the requirement that our application fees, we all know this from building permit fees because there's strict rules about building permit fees, but really the courts have established these principles long ago that we can't be making a profit off of our fees that we charge. So if we charge, for processing a site plan, if we charge a fee, that fee is supposed to be reasonably related to the cost of staff time involved in that. Now, obviously, you can't, what site plan review for this one versus that one is not going to be the same, so they're generalized, but cities should be monitoring what they're charging in fees and making sure that it compares to what those costs actually are. And the first statute that was in the list, that's what that was the legislative language they were putting in there. But it's not really a new requirement because we've always existed in that because the courts have said that for years. It's a matter of equal protection under the law. I don't remember if it was the second or third. I think it was the second one was just some tweaks to Live Local Act. There may be other properties in the city, but the one that comes to mind is the church property that's been there forever. They added to Live Local, which you remember is the affordable housing statute that they adopted that allows basically a developer to come in under certain conditions, take a piece of commercial property or industrial property, and say, I'm going to put affordable housing there. And if it meets all the requirements, there's something we can say about it. Not only is there nothing that cities can say about it, it's an administrative review. It doesn't even come to the public courts. They have added to that list of commercial and industrial properties that have housed a church. There was a number of years, I can't remember if it was 10 or 20, but where a church has been there for a number of years, that those properties also would qualify to be used as a Live Local site. So that was the change relevant to cities from Live Local. The third one that was included actually is not relevant to the city of Flagler Beach because it only applies to cities, at least today, only applies to cities with populations of 10,000 or greater. But to the extent the city ever gets there, or so you understand what your sister cities may be dealing with, and it's the direction the legislature is thinking, that third one is really about easing the application process for development. Tallahassee is always hearing from developers how hard it is to develop in cities. And so they are now putting on to cities the burden of creating a process 10,000 or greater, of creating a process for again, kind of codifying what a lot of cities already do, which is pre-application process. And so telling those cities of that size, you need to have a structured pre-application process. And they said, so you can see it in the statute, they said things that it must accomplish. The idea being, though, to kind of bridge that gap between developer and the actual formal process, what happens in the middle to get them there more smoothly without so many hiccups or problems that come up along the way, try to make it more smooth. There is a requirement in there that the cities have, adequate staffing for that. And so one of the interesting parts of it is actually allowing cities to contract out that pre-app process. So I'm curious to see if anybody avails themselves of that and how that works, because that's essentially saying you're going to be our continuing service agreement contractor to handle pre-application services. So it's encouraging cities at this point, again, of a certain size, to contract out their planning, which we've seen a lot of things contracted out over the years, but planning, actually I work with an outside planner in one city, but that's the only one. Planning has been in-house. So it may encourage, we might start to see some more outside planning services come into cities as a result of that legislation. But again, at this point with our population, would not apply to the city of Flagler Beach. So those are those 3 statutes.
Any project updates?
Yes.
We're going to share when you find it.
Last 3 pages.
I think, oh, it's the tiny little map.
Yeah, the
Got
last
it.
3 pages.
So this is kudos to our grant writer and to the engineering department. So this let me see, the notice to proceed on, you want to talk about this, the projects, or you?
On the swales and the drainage on those streets?
So many of these projects, the last time they were maintained was back in 2008. So we're 18 years later. So since that time, one of the things we've discovered is lots of folks have come in there and altered the right-of-way. Whether they've changed their driveways, brought in some fill, because they wanted some additional parking spaces along the right-of-way. So a lot of things have changed in these areas.
A lot of them are ripped down and rebuilt after Irma too.
Right. So basically, we just need to go through a lot of these areas and restore it back to the original design. And so we've got several areas throughout the city, Venice Park area. If I say these subdivision names, I'm hoping that you guys understand where that's at. So, okay, so you've got Venice Park, and I don't remember the names of the other, like, or 10th, 11th. Palma Vista, and then you got Palm Circle. So there's, oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, when you guys did these neighborhoods, you also did the swales to go underneath the driveways.
That's correct.
Will that also be part of this maintenance?
Yes.
Cleaning up there?
So if there's a driveway that was altered, we're going to go back and restore it to the original design. So install a culvert or a trench drain or whatever was the original design. If it hasn't been altered and it was left alone, then we're just going to clean things out.
That's the biggest issue on 11th Street. I live on 11th, and the things aren't cleaned out.
Right.
The other thing I know is there any way to get a backflow preventer on that exit that's in the center of the street, goes out to the canal?
There should be one.
There should be, but I get compromised in my garage before I do from the back where the canal is, which tells me the street's flooding before the canal's coming up over the seawall.
I'd have to go back and check the situation of the backflow device, but the backflow devices were installed at all outfalls citywide, so there should be one in there. I will have to go back and
That was
inspect
the
it.
first one to be replaced.
11th?
Yeah. Do you remember that? I think you sat in on all these meetings. It was when 900 people used to come. You definitely did. I forgot you were here. Wasn't that the first one that was
But
replaced?
yeah,
Yeah?
I guess, see, A, if it's there, B, is it working? No.
I'm used to Paul being in the
Well,
back of the room.
There's a lot of fronts.
It may not be functioning properly. We'd have to do some investigation.
Like I said, I watch the water come up from the street a heck of a lot quicker than the canal.
Right.
So, and it's all coming back from.
And along Avalon Avenue, where the swale in front of a property I own is extremely deep. You know, you try to get a little bit off the pavement to park there, and so now the dirt has dropped down off the edge of the pavement. It's starting to compromise the pavement, so I guess that would be reworked. I don't know why it's so deep in front of that one property compared to others. Oh, well, the outfall's right there. That would be why.
Right. Yeah, so it's our goal to basically do the maintenance, the deferred maintenance that hasn't been done in so long, go back and do those areas.
That's exciting.
Yep.
So where are we gonna, just got a questions. There's other, stormwater projects that were done even prior to those that haven't been touched since they were done either. So, is there any plan to attack them as well?
So there's several other projects that we've got going on throughout the city.
Mainly down the far south side.
The south side?
Yeah.
Right, yeah, so there's several areas where we're gonna tackle, with some stormwater problems. So for instance, you may have noticed on South Flagler and 12th Street, we recently, cleaned the outfall. We are getting ready to clean the stormwater pond that's, by the fire department. We've got another project in the, Custer's Palm Harbor subdivision, on Palm Avenue. That's another, stormwater pond that's being cleaned out and restored to its original design. We are working on a swale project in many of the streets on the south end of town. We've got We've got numerous grants that we're applying for to do some additional work in the 2700 block of South Daytona, as well as in those areas, the streets that go behind there, such as Lake Shore. So we've got several areas where there's some design work in place. We're working on grants. They don't happen overnight. It takes a little bit of planning. So we're working on those areas.
Yeah, I get it doesn't happen overnight. Just one suggestion is to keep, was that 23rd through 25th, those two blocks, especially between, between 23rd and 25th. When we get a hard rainstorm, that road floods, and it's the first road in the city to flood. So,
On South Daytona?
yeah.
You're talking about like the 2400 block? You're right. That's one of the areas.
I mean, they go out and they put barricades out to keep people from driving through them at 30 miles an hour and
Right.
pushing water into their garages. So, and that's an area where a previous generation of stormwater projects were done. And I think it would be relatively easy to accomplish getting that water into some storm drains rather than it settling on the street.
Yeah, in that particular area.
24th Street especially,
Right.
as it goes laterally to the drains there, has a driveway with no culvert under it. And if there were swales that came around and actually hit 24th Street and let that water get down to that drain and out, then that road wouldn't sit there for days with water in it.
Right. Yeah, and it's one of my
I think
observations.
that might be a rather simple one to solve.
That one is. You're right.
Okay.
And I know something like that. I'm sure we could tackle that with in-house labor.
I do have a couple questions. So barring people obstructing swales, if things were just the way they should be, what's the typical maintenance cycle that we would want to achieve?
I would say 5 years is maximum. I mean, they really need to be on some sort of a 5-year cycle. And it's our job just to kind of keep up with the permitting, because what we see a lot of is somebody might come in with a driveway permit. They alter the driveway, and there's often times where it can be very difficult when somebody comes in with actually no permit, and they'll alter something on a weekend. You show up on Monday morning, and you're like, where did this come from? So it's just it's on our plate to just be a little more diligent and just kind of keeping up with what's happening out there, and just making sure that we enforce the maintenance of our swales.
And then, sorry, one last thing. And then the last page of our packet looks to be a fairly extensive project on Flagler by all the city buildings. Can you tell us about that one?
Oh, yeah. So that one's been ongoing for quite some time. There's a resiliency study was done for the whole South Flagler section from Moody Boulevard going towards South 7th Street. And the proposal is to construct a berm along the western boundary of those properties that the city owns. So that's going to protect our fire department, police department. We have a water tank there. We've got our facilities maintenance. We've got public works. All those areas. So that's going to be a linear berm along the whole western edge, and some additional work will be done to the stormwater pond that's right there by the water tank, with a pump system that will allow us to actually pump out the water. Should it fill up quickly, we could actually pump the water out to the other side of the berm to allow for more stormwater capacity. So we are working on a grant. That one's been ongoing for since prior to my arrival here. It's a difficult project, a lot of permitting, Army Corps of Engineer issues. We're impacting wetlands.
Mangroves were an issue on that one. I think that was 2022. That was brought up as a suggestion.
That's right. So there's mangroves. So we had to get some stormwater credits at a mitigation bank.
It was after the beaver dam failed.
Not aware of this.
You're supposed to be at every meeting. I remember looking at you in the back of the room.
Is it within the last
No,
3
it
years?
was after the Beaver Dam failed, Rick.
It looks like there's gonna be some pretty substantial upgrades to Flagler itself, so curb, gutter, storm drains.
Yeah, curb and gutter, the profile of the road's gonna be elevated a little bit, just have better drainage along that whole section of the street.
Is there a way we can include some like formalized parking along Flagler? Like a lot of people parallel park there now on the grass. Is there a way to add like
We've talked about that. That's one of the things that, it's an option. We're looking into that.
We gotta figure that sidewalk that's coming someday.
Oh yeah. Be aware of Suntrail too.
I've been fussing about that for quite some time.
Good point.
And that's kind of what got things rolling on South Flagler, was, that portion of South Flagler was getting a sidewalk there.
That was a big win. All right, board comments. Paul?
Nothing.
Scott? Lisa had one.
I just have a question. What made me think of it was the last, Mr. Craigo.
Yes.
So are they required to come to a TRC, or you just recommend, or can they be required?
It's not codified, but it is a courtesy, and we do think that it makes for a better
Yes.
project. The first TRC that he came to, he did not have a site plan. And we didn't talk about his project. We talked about all the encroachments and how we were feeling as a city and yada, yada, yada. The second time he came with signed and sealed. And it was very difficult to offer to help because his response was he's done this, he's spent
$45,000.
Yeah.
We heard it.
Yeah.
yeah. So I mean, it was a difficult client, and so and to all the staff, not just the planning and code enforcement staff.
Yeah, and if I might add, so the technical review committee, what we do is we get together the engineering department, so it's myself, Lupita is the planning department, we get somebody from fire department, building department, as well as sanitation. What we do is somebody brings us a conceptual drawing, and what we try to do is basically steer them in the right direction. We just give them some pointers. Hey, you probably need to do this and do this. Look out for this. We highlight it. Now, at that point, it is a conceptual drawing, so we don't have a complete set of drawings to look at. We're just trying to make sure they're steered in the right direction. At which point, when they're coming to the par board, that they have all their information so that you can get what you need to make your decision. So that's really what the purpose of the TRC is.
I was like, Flagler County doesn't have a choice. They just tell you, you're coming to TRC and this is your time, and if you don't show up,
Well, there's
you're
no
not gonna move
fee.
forward.
Yeah, so we don't have a fee for TRC.
Right.
And Mr. Barnhill, he came back and forth, at TRC before he even came to the PARB. So we do provide relevant feedback on site plans, and so I think it's a good practice, and there's no fee for it. So I think
Use it a lot before you spend $45,000 on site plan.
yes.
For it to work, you have to have a cooperative participant.
Rick, do you have any statements?
No.
I do not
Motion
need.
to adjourn.
Thank you.
I want to thank Bill for giving us a project update on the stormwater, and so thank you for that, and for all of the graphics.